The dish I'm going to be cooking today is a classic lasagna. In front of me I have all the simple ingredients to make the lasagna. Now these simple ingredients we're going to work on flavour. I'm going to show you how to get the most out of the ingredients for the flavour to get a tasty lasagna. What we've got is 500 grams of minced beef, about 150 grams of smoked streaky bacon. You can use pancetta or bacon if you wanted to, whatever you've got in the fridge. 2 small sticks of celery, 2 small carrots, 4 fat cloves of garlic which have been minced, 1 tablespoon of mixed herbs. If you didn't have mixed herbs, you can maybe use oregano or just see what's in the cupboard and mix them yourself. 2 medium onions and 2 tablespoons of sun-dried tomato puree. The cheese, 2 rounds of ricotta. Now I've got parmesan as well. Now this is Parmigiano Reggiano, it's the good stuff, okay? So I've paid that little bit extra for it. If you're not keen on these kind of cheeses, you could use the likes of Gruyere, or Manchego, or even mozzarella, or even a good quality cheddar cheese. When I say good quality, something that's sharp and piquant. You want to pay a wee bit extra for it, because you don't want a cheap cheese, because what will happen is it'll just seep oil, and we don't want ingredients in this that's going to seep any form of oil or liquid, because it's just going to dilute our lasagna in some form of extent. 2 tins of Italian chopped tomatoes, 2 400 gram tins, and a large glass of red wine. You could use white wine if you wanted to, or you could just leave the wine out altogether, because we are going to build up the flavour profiles in this. So to start off with, we're going to make our bechamel or white sauce for the lasagna. I have got 50 grams of butter, 50 grams of plain flour, and that's going to thicken up about 500 ml of full fat milk. 1 small onion. Now the traditional way of doing this would be to stud the onion with the cloves and the bay leaf as well, but I thought I want to slice the onion. I want to get as much flavour out of that onion as possible. Now the bay leaf, if you're not familiar with bay leaf, these are dried, they're more powerful than fresh ones. Now the bay leaf itself, what does it add to the dish? What it adds is, it's a cross between almost sort of spearmint and menthol, with hints of sort of black pepper and tree pine. It does have a slight bitterness to it, so if you've ever wondered what flavour it brings to a dish, that's what it'll bring. If you want to try it out, get a leaf and drop it into some boiling water to make like a tea of such, and then taste it. It'll give you an indication of what a bay leaf brings to a dish, because we're working with a lot of strong flavours here. So these flavours are going to stand out, from the bacon to the fried mince, but we want the bay leaf in there as well, just to shine. The clove. Now the clove itself, very aromatic. It's subtly sweet, slight notes of bitterness to it, and it does bring sweetness to the dish as well. So my milk, I'm going to add the aromatics. I'm going to add the onion, which again sliced for more flavour. 1 large bay leaf, I'm using 2 small ones, and 3 cloves. So I'm going to blast this into the microwave to heat it up. I'm going to leave it to infuse for about 20 minutes to get as much flavour out of the aromatics as possible. And while that's heating up, we'll head over to the stove and start cooking our mince. Now we're going to start doing this in stages. First of all, we're going to sweat the onions and the garlic off. So splash olive oil in the pan, nice hot pan, in with our finely diced onion. And we just want to cook this with no colour, so it's going to take about 2 or 3 minutes. To that, I'm going to add a few turns of salt. That's just going to help sweat the onion off. And we just want it so the onion is just almost translucent. In with our garlic. And we just want to be careful here with the garlic, so we don't want it to catch on the pan, otherwise it's just going to become bitter. So there we have our onions and garlic. Just going to remove that from the pan. Now to save on the washing up, we're going to use the same pan again. So we're just going to turn this up and we're going to fry our streaky bacon. Again, another nice drizzle of olive oil. And in with our bacon. We just want to give that a moment just to come up to temperature until it starts to caramelise and go nice and golden, because we want as much flavour out of this streaky bacon as possible. So now the bacon is lovely and rendered down, lovely and crispy. We're just going to take this out of the pan onto the same plate as the onions. Pan back on the heat. We've still got some lovely crispy bits in there as well, with lots of flavour. So now we're going to fry off the mince. Splash more oil. Now I'm going to do this in a couple of stages, because I want to get as much browning out of the mince as possible. I don't want to overload the pan, because it'll just start to stew. I want it brown. I want it brown to get as much flavour into it as possible. So that's the first batch of mince ready to go. You can hear that popping, and that is a good sign that the mince is going to be lovely, brown and caramelised. So I'm going to take this out of the pan first of all and continue with the rest of the mince. That's now all the mince lovely and browned. You can see now already how lovely, crispy and brown that is, as opposed to that wishy-washy kind of grey that a lot of people think and happens when the mince is browning. Same pan again for the savour again and washing up. Splash of olive oil. Now we're going to go in with our veg, our carrots, our celery, a few tons of salt, and again we just want to cook that very gently, just sweating it off. I'm just going to scrape any caramelised bits off the bottom of the pan. Tomato puree. Just want to cook the raw nice out of the tomato puree. In with our mixed herbs, get them going. Already the smells and the flavours, and just know it's going to be tasty. Back in with our mince. Followed by the sweated onion and the crispy bacon. And followed by a large glass of red wine. Now we just want to reduce that for a couple of minutes. Now a lot of people might want to add a stock cube at this point, a beef stock cube, but seeing we've taken that mince to a lovely caramelization, we've got more flavour in the pan, so there's going to be no stock cube. Beautiful. Now in with our chopped tomatoes. So that's two 400 gram tins of Italian tomatoes. I'm just going to take that back up to a simmer, and we're going to simmer it for about 20 minutes until we've got a lovely ragu. So now the ragu has been simmering for about 20 minutes now. It's just been bubbling away nicely with the lid slightly ajar. So I just want that to reduce as well and become even more rich. Now let's just have a wee look. We can see now how much body it has. I just want to get a wee taste now. Oh yeah, it's got really good flavour. That's quite worried there about the acidity of the tomatoes, but the sweetness is actually really, really nice in it. If for some reason you think that it's quite acidic, just throw a teaspoon of sugar in there. That'll just balance it out nicely. Now to that I'm just going to add a few turns of black pepper. It is really, really tasty. So I'll pop the lid back on for just now for the final few minutes, and we get on with the bechamel. Our pan on a medium-low heat. We just want to get the 50 grams of butter into the pan. And we just want to get that all melted. Now the butter is all nice and melted, we want to act quickly here. We don't want to brown the butter. In with the flour, 50 grams of plain flour. So what we're doing here is we're just creating a little roux. If you can just see that, it looks like ploppy sand, as if you're walking on the beach. I'll give that about 20 seconds just to cook the rawness of the flour out. And what's going to help as well with cooking this as quickly as possible is the fact that we've heated up the milk as well. So we're going to take our milk and we just want to add it gradually. Whisking all the time. Now if the milk was cold, what will happen is you'd find that it would just clump and be all lumpy and not very pleasant. Keep that moving. If for some reason you think, oh, it has become lumpy, don't worry about it. Go in with a stick blender or into the food processor, and it'll just become nice and smooth. You can see how it's almost now cooking nicely. It's forming its body. I forgot to say as well, I've sieved out the aromatics from the milk. So the flavour of the milk for about 20 minutes. We've got lovely flavour in there. There we have it. So I'll just turn this down. I'm just give that a couple of minutes on a low simmer. So this white sauce, good to go. I've cut the heat out because now we're going to add the cheese. And if we continue to boil that, what's going to happen is the cheese is going to become more gritty and bitty in the sauce, and we don't want that. So heat out. I've grated 50 grams of the Parmesan. Add that to it. Lovely and whisked in. Now with the Parmesan being quite salty, we're not going to add any salt to that. I'm going to take half of one of the ricottas. I'm going to add that to it. The ricotta is kind of is light and sponge-like, and it's just, and creaminess, and it's going to be really nice in our sauce as well. I would see how quickly that cheese melts in there. Finish it with just a whiff of white pepper. And there we have it. Obviously one final taste. Yeah, everything's coming through there. The aromatics, the cheese, the saltiness from the cheese. Yeah, delicious. And now it's ready to construct. Now to lay the lasagna, I've got my lovely deep dish here. It's going to be a deep filled lasagna. We're going to start off, we're going to make 3 layers. Okay, so just by eye, I'm going to take the mince, make sure it's nice and level. Now I'm using just dry lasagna sheets. You can use fresh from the chiller if you like. I'm just going to start layering. Now you can see the lasagna sheets. I don't want them overlapping. If you overlap them, it's just going to take that wee bit longer to cook. So what I'm going to do is, I'll just take a wee piece off here and jigsaw it together. Now with the white sauce. So we're just creating nice, even layers. Now seeing I've gone that way with the lasagna sheets first time, I want to go this way now. So we're creating like a crisscross pattern. So when it comes to cutting and serving it, it's going to lift out nicely. Another layer of mince. I want to make sure there's no bits of lasagna peeping out. Everything is just submerged in sauce. Keep everything nice and neat and tidy. There we have it. Now we want to take the remainder of our ricotta. And I just want to break it up and just scatter it as evenly as we can over the top. Don't worry about gaps. Some of it will just melt, some of it will keep its shape, and when it hits the oven it's going to become lovely, golden and creamy. Again, the choice of cheese, like I've said, is really up to you. If you just pay that little bit extra for a good quality cheese, you won't have that seepage from the cheese and oils coming out of it, and it'll just look absolutely horrendous. And we now just want to finish it with just a good grating of our Parmesan. And I'm talking, don't be shy with it, because once it's finished baking, we want that really golden, crispy, crunchy, I use burnty bits. I know a lot of people do like them crispy edges to the lasagna. There we have it. No expense spared on the cheese. Oop. So there we have it. Lovely, layered. You can see the layers nice and even. So we're going to get that into a preheated oven at 180 degrees. That's going to take about 40-45 minutes. So we'll pop that in, I'll come back to it. So here we have the lasagna, no long out of the oven. It's at a good 45 minutes. But what I've done is, on the last sort of 5-10 minutes, I've just cranked it up to 200 degrees just to get these lovely little crispy bits on the top. You can see how golden and crunchy the cheese has become now, and it's all sort of creamed together, and some of the pieces have remained whole as well. Delicious. So I've rested it. Coming out of the oven, it's had a 10-minute rest, because what I find is it just settles and holds better up when it comes to cutting, rather than straight out of the oven cutting it and it just becomes a whole mess that just falls apart. So I'm just going to cut a nice portion. This will probably feed 6 hungry people, to be honest. There we go. Just make sure we're going through all the sheets. You can hear that crunch from these lovely crunchy bits on the side. Just loosen it up. Let's see if we can get this out in one whole piece. Also as well, you can actually freeze this before you put the cheese on the top. Freeze it before we cook it. I've got to be quick here. Let's be quick. And then you can defrost it and cook it another day, or you can freeze it as it is, or portion it up and then freeze it. It's really up to you, but it's just nice convenience food. And then we have it, my lasagna with lovely crispy bits, lovely creamy. You can see all them, the layers are nice and defined as well. That's it, and you can see the portion. It's a lovely hearty portion. Simple ingredients, lots of flavour brought to the table. Enjoy.